A very good morning to all. I welcome you all in this online lecture, and it's very good that through this online platform we could connect to each other. We could make proper use of this platform for academic engagement, for intellectual exchange. And today I'm very, very happy that we have with us Professor Jampa Samten, sir, who will be speaking on Buddhist approach to political thought. Actually, whenever we talk about political thought, we know that political thought is a discipline which engages with uh, uh, the questions like what what is the origin of the state, what should be the relation between individual and the state, why should individual obey the state. But you see, when we talk about ancient Indian political thought, we find it engages with broader questions. The questions like what is the relation of individual with the cosmos, what is the purpose of human life, and it is the answer to these broader questions which shape the answer to those questions, which is what would be our relation to the state, why should I obey the state, and so on. And when we think in terms of different traditions of ancient Indian political thought, or I can say ancient Indian philosophy, we find there are different schools who have responded to this question, these broader questions of the purpose of individual's life, its responsibility, its relation with cosmos. So there are diverse tradition. On the one hand, we have in Hindu tradition we have Arthashastra school, we have Dharmashastra school, we have Niti Shastra school. On the other hand, we have Buddhist tradition, we have Jain tradition, and therefore we find that if a student have to understand properly the nature of Indian political thought, we need to engage with all these tradition, and which all these tradition make this Indian political thought very rich. So today I'm very, very happy that we have with us Professor Jampa Samten, sir. Before inviting sir, I'd like to give a brief introduction about sir to all our students. Professor Jampa Samten sir is a professor in the Tibetan History and Culture at the Department of Social Science, Faculty of Adhunik Vidya at Central Institute of Higher Tibetan Studies, Sarnath, Varanasi. Sir has a diverse work experience. He has a Bachelor of Library Science in 1980. After that, he worked as the librarian of Tibetan manuscripts section in the Library of Tibetan Works and Archives at Dharamshala. He did his master's in Buddhist philosophy from Sanskrit University, Varanasi. Then he did his PhD from Vishwa Bharati University, Shanti Niketan. Sir has his area of specialization mainly in political and cultural history of Tibet and its neighboring Himalayan region, history of Buddhism in ancient India and Tibet and its neighboring Himalayan regions, ancient Buddhist literature. He has authored many books. He has co-authored many books. He has published several research papers in the journals of national and international repute. He has been recipient of some very significant, very prestigious fellowships. To name a few, he has received fellowship from Advanced Institute of World Religions, State University of New York, USA in 1989. He taught Buddhism and its history in Hampshire College, USA as a visiting professor in 1998. He received fellowship from the Israeli Institute of Advanced Studies, the Hebrew University of Jerusalem, Israel, for undertaking the project The Chinese and the Tibetan Buddhist Tantra in 2013 and 14. So it's really our proud privilege to have you with us, sir. Today, sir will be speaking on Buddhist approach to statecraft and governance with special reference to Acharya Nagarjuna's Rajavrittopadesha. And I'm very, very hopeful that this session is going to be very, very useful, very, very beneficial for our student, and we'll learn a lot from you, sir. And I'd like to tell my student one more thing, that in the end we'll take up your questions and you can post your question in the chat box. And one more thing which I'd like to add, that sir has expertise in Hindi language, in English, in Tibetan, and in Sanskrit. So I have requested sir to speak in a bilingual mode so that our students from both Hindi medium and English medium can be benefited. So once again, I welcome you, sir, on the behalf of the Department of Political Science and on my personal behalf. Now it's over to you, sir. Once again, welcome to you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. Can you see my handouts?
No,
Not
sir.
Yet,
No.
Not yet. So what do I have to? Maybe I have to click on present now.
You have to click on present now. It will show your window
Then
which you want to show.
Entire. Okay. Your entire.
That window. No, not entire screen, sir. Only window. You click on the window. Yes.
Okay. Now.
Share. You click on the window
Yes,
which you want to show.
Okay. Now.
Yes. Now it will come, sir.
Can you see? No. Not yet.
No, sir. 1 second. Can someone let me know whether you are able to see it or not?
Yes, ma'am. We can see it.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, sir. Now it's visible.
Yes, ma'am.
It's visible. Okay. Okay. Good morning to everybody. And actually, when I was asked by Professor Priti Singh ji to give a lecture on the Buddhist political thoughts, so I was very much hesitated to accept that. But being a student and being born and brought up in a Buddhist environment, and then studied the Buddhist philosophy, as well as I have studied a little bit about the political science up to the PA level. So I'm also interested on the topic. So then finally I agreed to share some of my thoughts regarding the Buddhist approach to the statecraft and governance. The reason why I choose this topic is especially because when you look back in Indian history from the 3rd BC, from the Ashoka's time until the 3rd century AD, that is almost during the period of Kushan dynasty, the Kanishka. So during this period of about 600 years, the Buddhism flourished. Buddhism went out of India, and these kings, especially the Ashoka, if in the Indian history, if there's any king who really strictly ruled the United India, Akhand Bharat, that is Ashoka. So Ashoka became a great ruler, and his rule stretched all over the present India and great large part of Asia after the Kaninga War. So after the Kaninga War, we don't see any event of Ashok's launching war with anything. So my interest was Ashok, and then after that the Kanishka, the king whose the political domain stretched from the Central Asia up to the Mathura. And then another at the same time, almost a contemporary to the Kanishka in South India, we have another kingdom in the Satman dynasty. All these great kingdoms, they have a great political domain and very powerful, but mainly these kings they are the supporters of the Buddhism, as well as they have governed they have ruled the country, they have ruled their territories through the Buddhist ideology or Buddhism. So my interest was how did they govern how they became so powerful without engaging into any war or battle or any violence act. Without engaging into violence, how they became so powerful and influential. So that was my interest. And then, of course, Ashoka, about Ashoka, we know very well, and there are many Ashokan inscriptions and many things about that, but I have not any special literatures to share with you about the Ashoka, but I have two literature, that is the Nagarjuna, the one of the Buddhist great scholar of Buddhism, scholar and also a great philosopher, who patronized the Satvana king, and he wrote two very important texts addressed to the Satvana king. So that's these letters, these books are translated into Tibetan in the 8th centuries, and so it's in the Tibetan. And then there's another letter written by a Buddhist monk to the Kanishka king, the Kanishka, very powerful king Kanishka. And so all these Buddhist scholars, how they influence these great emperors and rulers, and how they influence how they advised or how they influence this great ruler through the Buddhist idea and the Buddhist principle. That was my interest. So I'm here, just basically I'm going to share some general ideas about the Buddhist governance available in the Buddhist literature, as well as the Buddhist approach to the governance, according to Nagarjuna. So these are the things what I'm going to share with you. So this is just not a big, very academic, intellectual academic lecture, but I'm just simply sharing my thought because as I said, I was born in a Buddhist, born and brought up in a Buddhist environment. I try to live my life on a Buddhist principles, what I have studied and what is so. So I really wanted to share some of my thoughts. So to begin with, as I said, Buddhist literature does not explicitly set out any political thought, which can be, because very hardly there's any. But recently I have seen a review of a book entitled Buddhism and Political Thought, written by Mori. So the reviewer describes Mr. Mori as a political theorist and immersed himself in Buddhist canonical texts, which means he's a political theorist as well as he's familiar with the Buddhist literature. But his book, the title of his book suggests is Buddhism and political theory. It is not Buddhism, it is not Buddhist political theory, or neither it is Buddhism in political theory. So which suggests that for him also there's not much in the Buddhist literature about the political theory as we understand in the Western context. So, however, if there's any political thought or system initiated or accepted by Shakyamuni Buddha, was deliberative democracy. So, acha, okay. So how we can say, or how you can say that Buddha initiated and accepted the principle, the democratic principle. So there are two examples here. One, in the Buddhist, there's one famous.
Excuse me, sir.
Oh, yes.
Sir, sorry to interrupt, but if possible, kindly do speak also
Bilingual.
in Hindi. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yes.
Sorry to intervene, sir.
Yes. Okay. अच्छा जी. इस लेक्चर में अच्छा बुद्धिस्ट लिटरेचर में पॉलिटिकल थॉट करके विशेष रूप से तो बहुत वर्णन मिलता नहीं है. फिर भी जब अगर भगवान बुद्ध ने अगर कोई पॉलिटिकल सिस्टम या पॉलिटिकल थ्योरी से संबंधित कोई उपदेश या कोई प्रारंभिक उन्होंने कुछ कहा है तो वो डेमोक्रेसी पर है, डेमोक्रेटिक पर. भगवान बुद्ध ने पॉलिटिकल सिस्टम पर तो शायद कुछ खास कहा नहीं है. पॉलिटिकल सिस्टम के समाज में पॉलिटिकल सिस्टम और पॉलिटिकल थ्योरी किस तरह से होना चाहिए उस पर तो कोई विस्तृत उन्होंने वर्णन नहीं दिया है. लेकिन उनके जीवन काल में पॉलिटिकल जो डेमोक्रेटिक सिस्टम, जो गणतंत्र की परंपरा का उन्होंने हम कह सकते हैं एक तरह से इसका प्रारंभ और उसका उस प्रणाली को अपनाया, खास करके अपने भिक्षु संघ में. तो इसका एग्जांपल एक ये मिलता है कि हाउ उन्होंने जो ये डेमोक्रेसी को उन्होंने कैसे अपनाया और उसका कैसे प्रोत्साहन दिया, उसका एक उदाहरण, वेरी स्पष्ट उदाहरण ये मिलता है कि भगवान बुद्ध के समय जो मगध के राज अजातशत्रु बहुत एक बड़ा विशाल राज थे और उनके पड़ोसी में एक लिच्छवी गणतंत्र करके, लिच्छवी जो आजकल के विशाली, वहाँ लिच्छवी का छोटा सा राज था. तो अजातशत्रु ने लिच्छवी पर आक्रमण करने के लिए उन्होंने विचार रखा. वो चाहते थे कि वो लिच्छवी पर आक्रमण करके उनको, लिच्छवी को अपने शासन के अंदर लेने के लिए उन्होंने विचार आया. तब उस समय उन्होंने भगवान बुद्ध से पूछा कि अगर वो लिच्छवी गणराज पर आक्रमण युद्ध करते हैं तो वो सफल हो पाएगा कि नहीं हो पाएगा. तो इसका जवाब भगवान बुद्ध ने ये कहा, सिंपल था, वेरी सिंपल. द क्वेश्चन, ओके, आंसर, ओके. जवाब ये था कि लिच्छवी जो वहाँ छोटा सा राज है, लेकिन वहाँ के लिच्छवी के जो राज के कार्य हो, राज के शासनिक कार्य हो या राज के जो दिनचर्या कार्य हो, जो भी वहाँ के कार्य है, वो वहाँ के जो सब प्रधान सब मिल करके एक डेमोक्रेटिक रूप में मिल करके फैसला करते हैं कि नहीं, ये पूछा भगवान बुद्ध ने। तो पूछा तो उन्होंने अजय शत्रु ने कहा हाँ ये तो करते हैं, वो हर फैसले सब मिलजुल करके फैसले होते हैं कि और एक राजा या एक या दो व्यक्ति विशेष के निर्णय पर राज नहीं चलता है। तो ये कहा तो फिर भगवान बुद्ध ने ये कहा कि अगर राज शासन सभी जनता के पार्टिसिपेशन से अगर निर्णय होता है तो उस गणतंत्र को पराजित करना आसान नहीं है। ये कह करके एक रूप से उन्होंने गणतंत्र और डेमोक्रेटिक सिस्टम को उन्होंने प्रोत्साहन दिया और एक तरह से उसको अपनाया, अपनाया। So in English, just in shortly, because there is a very interesting episode in the Buddhist literature that during the lifetime of Buddha, especially at the end of Buddha's lifetime, because Ajatasattu, he was the king at the end of the Buddha's life. So Ajatasattu was a king of the Magadha, and he was very powerful, and his neighboring state, which is very small, and the Lichabis. And so Ajatasattu wanted to merge the Vaishali kingdom under his domination through a war. But before launching the war, he asked Buddha whether he would succeed in defeating Lichavi if he launch a war against the Lichavi. So in response to that, Bhagavan Buddha asked a very simple question to the Ajatasattu, saying that does the Republic of Lichavis holding regular and frequent assemblies to discuss affairs of the state collectively and endeavor to carry out the day-to-day tasks of the governance in harmony and paying a due heed to established practice and custom. So this he asked, and then of course the king Ajatasattu replied, yes, they do that. And then Buddha said that at the self-governing confederations or the republic states whose political and social affairs and day-to-day tasks of the government is determined collectively cannot be defeated without trouble. The aggressive battle intended by the king of Magadha was avoided. Thus, Buddha explicitly displayed the strength and effectiveness and the relevance of the democratic system of the governance for enduring a self-governing confederation of the state. So according to the available sources, particularly Buddhist sources or even in non-Buddhist sources, this is the earliest example of democratic republic state in India, and maybe I'm sure it could be the first example of republic state functioning on the principle of Buddhism in India. So that means the Buddha promoted, and he is in favor of the system, particularly a political system, where the participation of the public is there. And I think this, as I said, because this happened at the end of the Buddha's lifetime. And I think this principle of adopting a democratic republic state by the Vaishali Lichavis state must have been influenced by the Buddhist monastic system. So Buddhist monastic system, which was of course adopted and system introduced by Lord Buddha, was fully functioning on the democratic basis. So I have we can say that the Buddhist monastic governance and deliberative democracy. So here's some example how the Buddhist monasteries are functioning on the principles of a democratic principle and democratic pattern system. Because this is interesting. Many of the crucial features of the Buddhist approach to the social philosophy and political governance can be explicitly understood from the principle and practice governing the organization of the monastic community. The distinctive feature of the monastic community over and above social and moral dimension of the Buddhist practice was its rule and procedure of the management of monastic community. The monastic communities are governed and regulated well by a well-formulated code of conduct, that is Vinaya, which form the integral part of the Buddhist Tripitaka, enumerating the rules and procedures governing the structure and functioning of the monastic community. According to the monastic mode of governance, the brotherhood of monks was established on a democratic foundation with a court of law governing their conduct. The day-to-day affairs of the Sanghas were governed by a liberal culture of equalitarian interpersonal relations. There was no formal hierarchy or the dynastic favoritism in the monastic order. It was not a social status or other characteristic that determines the seniority and the status of the monks in the monastic community. The status and seniority of the monks is determined by the date of their ordination. All the major issues or the settlement of dispute or any argument is decided by the majority vote. So here, everything in the monastic is decided on the majority's voting. They do have a voting system, and then even there's no any social or hierarchy status according to the social background. So everything was decided by the date of their ordination democratically. The Buddha's own son, when ordained as a monk, took his place in the Sangha according to his seniority. So इसमें संक्षिप्त में ये है कि इन बुद्धिस्ट जो संघ कम्युनिटी है वहाँ बिल्कुल जो हर कार्य भरपूर संघ में प्रवेश लेने से लेकर के हर स्टेप पर हर ये डेमोक्रेटिक सिस्टम से होता है वहाँ बुद्धिज्म में बुद्धिस्ट monk में बुद्धिस्ट मोनास्टिक सिस्टम में कोई भी फैसला हो कोई भी जो भी कार्य करना हो सब मेजोरिटी के decided by majority. And the monastic code of conduct stimulates the intellectual life of the monks is immensely Buddhist thought. The community of persons ideally seeking liberation from the greed, hatred, delusion, force, etc. are living in the communal harmony. And or then another thing is the Buddhist community. Everything you live in a communal harmony with communal property and with the bare minimum of personal private community. इसलिए हर चीज वहाँ क्योंकि आपका पूरा खान पान और सब भिक्षा से भिक्षा पर आधारित है, भिक्षा लेकर के उसी पर जीवन आधार होता है. फिर in addition to pursuing a spiritual need of the domestic order, the monastic codes specially indicate that Sangha was responsible for towards the wider society of lay persons who caters and assist the community in meeting the daily life. In short, there's a deep sense of social responsibility, caring, and compassion underlining the mutually constituted relation between the monks and follower. This form, the monastic governance, contained many features of the social craft present in the self-governing. As I said earlier, the Vaishali Lichvi Ganraj, where they have the democratic republic system, have been adopted or was influenced by the Buddhist monastic system. And I think it is not only the Lichavis Ganraj who have been influenced by the Buddhist monastic system of governance, which is formally based on the democratic pattern. Many other states do have adopted the republic system during the lifetimes of Buddha and maybe even after that. But in short, during the lifetime of the Buddha, the democratic system was very much promoted, and even it was adopted in the Buddhist monastic system. And even today in the Buddhist country, where there's a big monastery, the same system of governance in the monastic system, which is purely based on the participation of all monks and Sangha community. So that's, I think, Buddha was very much in favor of the democratic system of governance. And then apart from that, now, as I said, in the Buddhist literature, there's hardly, there's very little about the political thought, but the Buddhist, great Buddhist kings like Ashoka and Kanishka and the kings of the Satvan dynasties, they have been very successful in governing their state, and also they have promoted the Buddhism. So how did they succeed in giving a very stable and good governance without engaging in any sort of violence. So the emphasis in the Buddhist literature and the Buddhism was on the behaviors and attitudes of the individual person or the individual persons who are responsible for giving a stable and good governance, such as king, ministers, generals, whatever, all those persons in the administrative machinery. So the Buddhist literature, particularly the Nagarjuna's famous 2 books, they prescribe certain characteristics, essential characteristics for good governance. So we will, I think that's very important, because these are the certain essential characteristics for delivering a good governance. And Buddhist literatures prescribe certain essential qualifications for kings and ministers and treasurers and all those who are in charge of the establishments, religious establishment, in the light of Buddhist principle. So all the characteristics or the qualifications for the kings, ministers, and persons, individuals who are responsible for giving a good governance are prescribed in the light of Buddhist principles. So therefore, because as all these characteristics are laid down on the principle, on the Buddhist principle, so I think it's a little bit essential to know some of the distinctive features of Buddhism, how Buddhism is slightly different from other religion. So that's slightly, I think, important. So let us, अच्छा, इसमें जैसे हमने कहा था कि बुद्धिस्ट लिटरेचर में राजनीतिक बुद्धिस्ट थॉट पर इतना विस्तृत उपलब्ध नहीं है, लेकिन बड़े जैसे अशोक है, कनिष्का है, सतवन के महाराजा है, सतवन के जो राजवंश, जिन्होंने बहुत विशाल शासन और बहुत विस्तृत शासन चलाया उन लोगों ने, जिनका तो इन लोगों ने शासन किसके आधार पर किस नीति के अनुकूल उनका शासन इतना समृद्ध और विकासशील और विकासशील संपन्न हुआ, इसमें यहाँ जो शासन के कार्य में लगे हुए जो राजा है, जो मिनिस्टर, मंत्री वगैरह जो है, जनरल्स है, उनकी व्यक्तित्व और उनके जो नैतिक चरित्र कैसा होना चाहिए, उनके नैतिक चरित्र और उनके जो जीवन व्यवहार के कैसा होना चाहिए, उस पर बहुत विद्वानों ने कुछ ये सब जो प्रशासनीय जो अधिकारी ये सब किन गुणों से युक्त होना चाहिए, क्या क्या गुण होना चाहिए, और ऐसा कुछ गुण उन्होंने वो किया है, वो भी बहुत धर्म और बौद्ध विचार के अनुकूल उन्होंने कुछ लिखा है। तो उसको जानने के लिए थोड़ा बुद्ध दर्शन और बुद्ध का विचार अन्य धर्म और अन्य दर्शन से थोड़ा क्या विशेष है, थोड़ा क्या भिन्न है, कि अन्य धर्म और अन्य दर्शन से थोड़ा अलग या कुछ थोड़ा विशेष है कि नहीं, अगर है तो क्या विशेष है। क्योंकि उन विशेषताओं के अनुकूल जो ये राजा और जो मंत्री और जो शासन के अधिकार है उनके गुण कैसा होना चाहिए, ये निर्धारण किया है। इसलिए थोड़ा यहाँ बुद्ध धर्म और बौद्ध दर्शन का विशेषता क्या है, इसको थोड़ा जानना आवश्यक है। तो इसलिए थोड़ा यहाँ देखते हैं, क्योंकि ये जानना इसलिए आवश्यक है क्योंकि जो भी गुण और जो भी क्वालिफिकेशंस जो निर्धारण होगा वो बौद्ध धर्म और दर्शन के अनुकूल होगा। तो इसलिए सबसे पहले बौद्ध धर्म क्या क्या विशेषता है उस पर थोड़ा सा 2 मिनट के लिए थोड़ा एक संक्षिप्त उसका रूपरेखा प्रस्तुत देता हूँ। Distinctive feature of Buddhism, I think Buddhism is of course one of the religion which is developed in India, and so it is one of the Indian religion originated in India. But Buddhism is slightly different, slightly distinctive from other religions of Indian origin, in the sense that first, Buddhism is non-gnostic or non-theoretic. Matlab, Buddhism do not accept the principle of creator or any. So, सृष्टि का निर्माता कोई भगवान और या कोई वो मानता नहीं है, कोई सृष्टि को मानता। सो therefore अगर सृष्टि के निर्माता, if yes, Buddhism does not accept the creator of the universe, then how universe is regulated and how it is formed? सवाल दूसरा सवाल ये। So then, if Buddhism often, because these days that scholars, they have a different views regarding the Buddhism. They have different scholars explain how Buddhism is different from other religions. Some says Buddhism is characterized. Buddhism is often debated whether questions often debated whether Buddhism being a non-theistic should be classified as a religion or not. यहाँ तक भी कहते हैं कि कुछ लोग जब बुद्धिज्म सृष्टि के निर्माता क्रिएटर नहीं मानते हैं, तब इसको धर्म के दर्जा, एक धार्मिक धर्म के रूप में मानना चाहिए कि नहीं चाहिए, ये भी एक आजकल इस पर भी लोग चर्चा करते हैं। अब और ये भी कहते हैं कि बुद्धिज्म is slightly different from others, इसलिए बुद्धिज्म एक जो अन्य रिलीजन है उससे थोड़ा भिन्न है, इसलिए बुद्धिज्म एक रिलीजन मात्र ना हो करके it is a characterized as a philosophical system which present the total view of the world. ये कहता है एक दार्शनिक सिस्टम ज्यादा है कि ना कि एक धर्म की संख्या देना चाहिए, ऐसा भी आजकल क्वेश्चंस ये कहते हैं। सो एनीहाउ, the one of distinctive feature of the Buddhism is Buddhism does not believe in the creator of the universe, सृष्टि के निर्माता कि ये नहीं मानते. That is one thing. अब दूसरा ये है कि अगर सृष्टि के निर्माता नहीं मानते हैं, then हर चीज का संचालन कैसे होता है? How it is happen? So it is the law of karma. Law of karma. Karma का मान्यता, of course, the karma, that principle of karma is in almost religion of Indian origin, but Buddhism is slightly different in the sense that in other religion, they like in other religion of Indian origin, they do accept the creator as well as the law of karma. So there's a slight confusion की सृष्टि अगर भगवान ने बना है, हर चीज भगवान का देन है, तब कर्म का क्या उचित है, फिर कर्म की क्या आवश्यकता है? जब कर्म ही निर्धारण करता है आपका सब कुछ, अच्छा बुरा सब कुछ आपके कर्म के फल के अनुकूल होता है, तब सृष्टि निर्माता का क्या रोल है? तो इस तरह का थोड़ा वहाँ एक चर्चा होता है. लेकिन इन बुद्धिज्म everything is based on the karma. So karma is the most powerful and most effective factor deciding your everything in this सृष्टि. ये अब कर्म है, कर्म को अच्छा कर्म बुरा कर्म इसका निर्धारण कौन होता है? ये आपके जो मानसिक जो क्लेश, यही इसका निर्धारण करते हैं. If you are influenced by a negative influence, then all your actions regulated by this clash are bad. So in Buddhism here, the principle of karma is very, very powerful, and the sense of karma is very effective. So anything in the Buddhist. So then second and the last final is the principle of rebirth, or even of course rebirth. The principle of rebirth is accepted in most of the religion in origin, but here in Buddhism, your rebirth, all the rebirth is whether birth is all regulated by your karma. And so these three factors influence all the Buddhist principles and philosophy and everything. So that's very important. And then let's say now Buddhism and politics or state relation. What is there? Generally these days, the relationship between the Buddhism and politics or the state is generally analyzed by means of the either two perspectives. That is, first is doctrinal or textual approach, and second is in terms of the popular Buddhism, but we will just focus on the first, the textual approach. बुद्धिस्ट बौद्ध ग्रंथों में यही कि बौद्ध ग्रंथों में बौद्ध धर्म के पॉलिटिक्स और राजनीतिक और राज शासन से संबंधित क्या कहा गया है और उस पर क्या क्या विचार किया गया है, और बस we will focus on that. The doctrinal and textual approach first look at Buddhism in terms of how it is portrayed in the classical literature. Despite of the fact that Buddhism has the largest number of the holy scripture narrated among all religion, except few notable statements and Buddhist attitudes to the Buddhist politics and social issues receive little mention. Mentioned in the Buddhist literature, Antiquity to the Shakyamuni, as well as the scholarly works of the letter writer. So यहाँ पर भी वही है कि बहुत जितना लिटरेचर, जितना साहित्य बौद्ध साहित्य सहित बुद्धिज्म में उपलब्ध है, शायद उतना अन्य किसी धर्मों में इतना लिटरेचर शायद नहीं होगा, लेकिन फिर भी इन इतना पर्याप्त लिटरेचर होते हुए भी इसमें कोई समाज से संबंधित या राजनीतिक से संबंधित ऐसा कथन और ऐसा बहुत कम उपलब्ध होता है, खास करके जो बुद्धिस्ट लिटरेचर जो भगवान बुद्ध के वचन माना जाता है उसमें भी, और जो भारतीय विद्वानों के द्वारा लिखित जो ग्रंथों है उसमें भी ये जो सोशल सामाजिक और राजनीतिक व्यवस्था से संबंधित विचार बहुत कम उपलब्ध है। अब इसमें as you know that Kautilya's Shastra, Arthashastra, is a very famous literature in Indian historical, I think in Indian political and economical system. It was written by Kautilya or Chanakya in the 3rd century BC during the time of Chandragupta, the father of the Ashoka, of course. And so this grant, this prestigious text, the Arthashastra, must be the one of the principal texts adopted by the Mauryan dynasty, of course. But there's there's a slight, what is the difference or very difference in thought in Kautilya's classical theory of statecraft and Buddhist classical thought of statecraft. So there's one, the major difference is here. The classical theory of the script in the early India, most probably based on the Veda, written by Kautilya, includes such notions as the divine origination of ruler, and then absolute power of monarchy and superiority of upper class, the Brahmins. During the reign of the Chandragupta, these Brahmanic idea of politics and scripts were given formal expression in the writings of the influential political theorist Chanakya in the 3rd century in his Arthashastra. The central feature of the Kautilya's political theory was justification offered for a monarchy's absolute power and theory, including the use of coercion and violence in the governance. So this is a difference now. Here, for the absolute power and authority, even the use of coercion and violence is permitted. So here, the art of governance for Kautilya rests primarily on the exercise of force for pursuit of material interest and also the maintenance of the order. तो यहाँ मेन ये है कि इसमें अपने शासन को चलाने के लिए और शासन को जो अधिकार है, शासन का अधिकार है, उसको उसके लिए वायलेंस, हिंसा का भी अगर आवश्यकता पड़े तो हिंसा का भी प्रयोग कर सकते हैं. But in Buddhist approach, that is slightly different. That is one variation. Here, this political principle stood in sharp contrast to the implicit or unspoken theory and practice of Buddhist approach to the sacrament, which was based on the will of moral rightness and singularly based on the non-violence. Yeah. So the main emphasis in the Buddhist political thought is based on non-violence and based on moral ideas and moral principle. But and this is what this was what subsequently influenced Ashoka in his approach to the governance, which was clearly inspired by the Buddhist notion of social and political theory. Mahayana texts not only commends the violence of war and violence, but also encouraged the resort to negotiation and strong alliance with the alliance in the matter of conflicts resolution. And then in the Buddhist perspective of Chakravarti Raja, कि राजा कैसा होना चाहिए, राजा किस गुण से युक्त होना चाहिए. So that's according to the Buddhist literature. Yeah. In Buddhist perspective or in Buddhist literature, whether or not the king is Chakravarti Raj is determined not merely by the political power he holds, the area of land and subject he conquered, Buddhist text entitled Chakravarti Singhanand sets out 10 virtues that constitute the essential elements of the Buddhist ethic and social philosophy. So इसमें ये दिया है कि अगर ये जो बौद्ध ग्रंथ है, इसमें चक्रवर्ती होने के लिए क्या गुण होना चाहिए, किस गुण से युक्त होना चाहिए. ये राजा चक्रवर्ती राज होना ना होना, ये उनके शासन कितना मजबूत है और कितना बड़े क्षेत्र पर उनका अधिकार है और कितने प्रजा पर उनका अधिकार है. ये एक चक्रवर्ती राज होने का मानक नहीं है, ये कह रहा है. ये मानक नहीं है. चक्रवर्ती राजा होने के लिए 10 गुणों से युक्त होना चाहिए. ये बुद्धिस्ट लिटरेचर का देखने का एक नजरिया ये है अप्रोच. तो 10 गुणों से युक्त होना चाहिए. तो 10 गुण ये है कि जेनरसिटी इन चैरिटी, दानवान हो, दान देने वाला. एंड हिज सेंस अंडर कंट्रोल, मतलब कि शीलवान होने का अर्थ में है ये. शीलवान जो अकुशल कार्यों से दूर रहने वाला, शीलवान हो. रेडी टू सेक्रीफाइस, ये अपने प्रजा के लिए, अपने जनता के लिए त्याग करने के लिए तैयार हो. स्ट्रेट फॉरवर्ड, मतलब कि बिल्कुल ईमानदारी और सीधा हो कोई आती है. एंड जेंटल एंड काइंडनेस, तो अपने प्रजा के प्रति प्रेम और स्नेह रखने वाला होना चाहिए. एबल टू सफर फॉर द सेक ऑफ द पीपल, ये है कि अपने प्रजा के लिए दुख दर्द और जो भी उसको सहने का क्षमता रखने वाला ऐसा राजा होना चाहिए, फ्री फ्रॉम एंगर एंड, और अपने जनता के लिए और दूसरों के प्रति क्रोधित रहने वाला ना हो, अक्रोध होना चाहिए राजा। कंपैशनेट टू ऑल, सभी प्राणियों के लिए, विशेष रूप से अपने जनता के प्रति हिंसा का प्रयोग न करने वाला, और टॉलरेंट ये होना चाहिए, शांति की सहन शक्ति हो, लोगों के परेशानी, लोगों का जो जनता का परेशानी और जो जनता का जो विचार है उसको सहने का शक्ति हो, क्षमता हो रखने वाला, ऐसा होना चाहिए। और अप्रोचेबल, और ये अप्रोचेबल ये कि जनता के उपलब्ध, हर समय जनता को उपलब्ध रहने वाला, इस तरह के गुण से युक्त होना चाहिए करके ये एक राजा। यहाँ इन बुद्धिज्म में ये इस पर बहुत जोर देकर दिया हुआ है कि जो शासन करने वाला, जो राज शासन चलाने वाला जो व्यक्तियों का क्या नैतिक गुण होना चाहिए, क्योंकि शासन अच्छा हो ना अच्छा हो वो किस पर निर्भर करता है, वो राज चलाने वाले जो व्यक्ति, राजा से लेकर के अपने मंत्री वगैरह सबको लेकर के जो शासन प्रणाली में जितना जो व्यक्ति है उनका नैतिकता और उनका चरित्र पर निर्भर करता है। अगर उनका ये इन व्यक्ति का जो मॉरल और एथिकल वैल्यूज और उनके जो करेक्टर साफ सुथरा शुद्ध हो, तब अच्छे गवर्नेंस दे सकता है। So this is an emphasis here. So these 10 virtues are here. अब उसके बाद, now let's come to the Ashoka. So these are just few general observations relating to the Buddhist approach to good governance. Now let's concentrate on the Nagarjuna. So Nagarjuna, this is very interesting. Nagarjuna, maybe I just go through this. Ashokan principle of statecraft that involved in the 3rd century may well have influenced the thinking of the great Buddhist philosopher in outlining the compassionate socialism of social policies. In his classic treatise entitled Jivan Garland, Ratnamala, and there's another text which is Suhirtilek. So Nagarjuna enumerates the guideline for the social actions given to his friend and King Ashoka, King Satkarni II of Satvana dynasty in the early 2nd century. Nagarjuna wrote and gave 2 classic texts, Ratnamala and Suhirtileka, to his friend King of Satvana dynasty. So these 2 texts are actually, it's a very good manual of Buddhist practice and philosophy. This is a very comprehensive manual of Buddhist practice and philosophy. I think these 2 texts were written in the 2nd century AD, and since then, even today, these 2 texts are studied in the Buddhist country, particularly in the minor Buddhist country like Tibet. Even today, these texts are studied in the Tibetan monasteries. And so it's a very famous and very comprehensive manual of Buddhist practice and philosophy. So this two texts was written by Nagarjuna for his friend, Satwan King dynasty. So what Nagarjuna advised in this chapter, in this text, what Nagarjuna says to his friend relating to the good governance. So ये जो नागार्जुन एक बहुत बड़े बुद्धिस्ट विद्वान और दार्शनिक दर्शन के विद्वान थे. इन्होंने जो मध्यमिका जो दर्शन उन्होंने स्थापना किया है, और he was one of the greatest Indian scholar who have promoted Buddhism, particularly Mahayana Buddhism. एक तरह से ये कह सकते हैं कि नागार्जुन ने महायान बुद्धिज्म का और महायान बुद्धिज्म का फिलॉसफी का एक तरह से उन्होंने नया रूप दिया है. उन्होंने उसका उत्पत्ति माना जा सकता है नागार्जुन. सो इस ग्रंथ में, इन दोनों ग्रंथ में नागार्जुन ने बौद्ध धर्म और दर्शन को कैसे एक विस्तृत रूप से इनको दर्शाया गया है. और ये उन्होंने खास करके ये ग्रंथ अपने दोस्त, या मतलब कि सतवन डायनेस्टी की राज सत करने के लिए ये लिखा गया था. तो इसमें एक चैप्टर है, इस ग्रंथ में जो रत्नमणि में 5 ग्रंथ चैप्टर्स है, उसमें चौथा चैप्टर का नाम ये है, राजवृत्तोपदेशो. अब ये वृत्तों का अर्थ कई तरह होता है, लेकिन यहाँ विशेष रूप से चरित्र और आचार से मतलब है. So this is a kind of a attitude or behavior of a king, how the king should behave, or what should be the attitude and behavior of a king. ये उन्होंने दर्शाया, इसमें कहा है. तो इसमें से कुछ श्लोक, इसमें भी अधिकतर तो it's advised on Buddhist moral, ethical and moral qualities, लेकिन राज शासन से संबंधित कुछ श्लोक है, तो उसको थोड़ा हम लोग देख लेते हैं. इसमें सबसे पहले उन्होंने ये लिखा है कि ओ किंग who does not a king who is not what is not righteous, a king who does not do what is righteous and is not suitable is not praised by his subject. इन्होंने simple ये कहा है, he said very simple that the king which is not working or does not do the things according to the moral and ethical rightness is generally praised by his subject. For why he is praised? Because the people do not know what the king will tolerate or not. So they don't know him. So they are afraid of him, and so people just simply praise him. He says, therefore it is hard to know what is useful to say or not. इसलिए he says it is very difficult to say what is useful for you or not. लेकिन उनके बावजूद फिर इसके बाद he says, but because of my compassion for you and through my compassion to all, I tell you without hesitation. तो इन्होंने संक्षिप्त में इसको लिखने का कारण इन्होंने ये बताया कि उनके जो राजा, जो सतवन के राजा, उनके प्रति जो उनका स्नेह है हो, और जो संपूर्ण जीव जंतु के लिए प्रेम और स्नेह उनके है, उसके लिए विदाउट हेजिटेशन मैं लिख रहा हूँ, शायद जो आपके लिए उपयोगी हो सकते हैं, मैं उसको लिख रहा हूँ, लेकिन सुनने में आपको शायद पसंद ना हो, तब भी मैं सीधा सीधा लिख रहा हूँ करके ये उन्होंने ये कहा है। अब उसके बाद ही सेज, अब ये एडवाइस दे रहा कि आपको कैसा प्रशासन चलाना चाहिए, अच्छे सुशासन और सुदृढ़ शासन चलाने के लिए आपको क्या क्या करना चाहिए, उसके लिए कैसा होना चाहिए, ये सलाह दे रहा है. So this is a kind of it's generally a kind of a लोक नीति, जो लोक नीति होता है, जो नीति शास्त्र के अनुकूल ही है. लेकिन इन्होंने भी ये कहा है कि let there be always a surrender of men who are old in experience और good lineage, जो आपको राजा के अपने आसपास अनुभवी लोगों से, वयोवृद्ध हो, अनुभवी हो, इस तरह का व्यक्ति और श्रेष्ठ कुल से संबंध रखता हो, फिर नीति को ठीक अच्छे से जानने वाला और पाप और दुष्ट कार्यों से दूर रहने वाला, इस तरह का व्यक्ति को आपके इस तरह के व्यक्तियों के समूह में आपको रहना चाहिए, इस लोगों के संपर्क में आपको रहना चाहिए. ये इनका सलाह है. मीन्स दिस इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट बिकॉज if a king, if he is surrounded by a person with little knowledge or who does not know the policy or with very distorted characters, so of course then it will affect the life and the rule of the governor. So ये उनका फर्स्ट उपदेश ये दे रहा है. और सेकंड उपदेश ये दे रहा है कि यहाँ भी द एम्फेसिस ऑन गिविंग चैरिटी यहाँ भी दे रहा है. इसमें कई श्लोक है कि आपको दान देना चाहिए. The reason why king should give dan is, he says, do not make contribution of the wealth obtained from wealth through your this. ये कह रहा है कि जो आपने संपत्ति अपने पूर्व जन्म के कर्मों से, जो कर्मों के फलस्वरूप जो आपको प्राप्त हुआ जो दान है, अगर उसको आप जो जरूरतमंदों को अगर नहीं देते हैं लालच के वजह से कारण, और अगर नहीं देते हैं, तब आपको भविष्य में मीन्स नेक्स्ट लाइफ मीन्स भविष्य में आपको धन प्राप्त नहीं होगा करके ये he is giving the reason why the king should engage in the charity in the Buddhist perspective, religious perspective. And so generally, as in the giving done or the charity is very important in the social in terms of social perspective, because by giving charities, donations to the needed person, it reduces the economic disparity between the people and between your subject. And then, of course, if a king or any person who is generous in giving the charities, then he or she would not be a greedy person. If you are not a greedy person, if you are a greedy person, then you would not be engaged in any action of action for more wealth, and such as engage in any illegal means of achieving more wealth. So therefore, I think charity is, of course, very important in the social life, particularly the kings and the persons who are on the top of the social level. And then Ratnamala, in second point, now he gives the, these are the now, I think, very important. And these are the some of the Nagarjuna in his Ratnamala prescribes essential characteristics, qualities of the major players in the administrative system, that is king, ministers, और ये दे रहे हैं. अब ये राजा और जो मिनिस्टर है, किंग है, ट्रेजर है, और जो भी जो शासन के प्रणाली में शासन चलाने के में लगे हुए हैं, उन लोगों का क्या चरित्र होना चाहिए, क्या गुण होना चाहिए, किस गुण से युक्त होना चाहिए, वो यहाँ दर्शा रहा है. तो इसको शायद ये कहना है कि फर्स्ट आपका जो मिनिस्टर है, बिकॉज मिनिस्टर यहाँ English is minister, okay, minister or the person who is responsible for giving advice and for executing the administrative role is minister. So what qualities should he have? So इसमें ये कह रहा है कि a person who knows good policies, good policy. अब ये तो ठीक है, नीति को अच्छा जानने वाला व्यक्ति होना चाहिए. और इस सेकंड में ये दिया है कि who practice doctrine. अब ये जो संस्कृत मूल है जो इस ग्रंथ का, उसमें उसके अनुकूल ये है कि धर्म का अनुपालन करने वाला व्यक्ति. Now here he says धर्म का अनुपालन करने वाला व्यक्ति, and who practice the doctrine. Here the doctrine particularly refers to the practice of the Buddhist doctrine, Buddhist practices, which is elaborately enumerated in his two books. इन दो ग्रंथों में उन्होंने बौद्ध धर्म के जो बौद्ध धर्म और बौद्ध दर्शन के जो परिचय उन्होंने जो दिया है, उसका ठीक से पालन करने वाला व्यक्ति. तो ये here this is होना चाहिए. तो उसमें सब जो बुद्धिस्ट ये है. एंड देन affectionate यहाँ जो का अर्थ यहाँ ये है अपने जनता और सभी प्राणियों के प्रति स्नेह रखने वाला और कोमल हृदय का होना चाहिए. देन इसमें प्योर है, प्योर उसमें मूल संस्कृत में शुचिन है. इसका अर्थ यही होगा कि दोष रहित चरित्र वाला, a person with a pure character who is not involved in any अकुशल कार्य से इन्वॉल्व ना हो, इस तरह का व्यक्ति. और फ्रेंडली ऑफ कोर्स, सबको भाईचारा से व्यवहार करने वाला. और अनडॉन्टेड मतलब कि सबको अपने प्रजा और लोगों प्रजा है सबको डराने धमकाने वाला ना होना। ये अनडॉन्टेड का अर्थ ये हो कि डराने भयभीत करने वाला ना हो और श्रेष्ठ स्कूल से संबंध रखता हो। देन ऑफ एक्सीलेंट डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन, ये भी वही है, ये भी संस्कृत मूल में शील परिचालन है, शील संपन्न होना, शील से युक्त होने वाला। तो यहाँ भी शील विशेष रूप से जो शील है वो जो बुद्धिस्ट जो शील बुद्धिस्ट जो एथिक्स एंड मोरालिटी उसका पालन करने वाला, ठीक से पालन करने वाला। यहाँ टू थिंग्स, इस जो नीति को जानने वाला, स्नेह रखने वाला, फ्रेंडली होने वाला, अनडॉन्टेड होना एंड कूल से, ये तो सब इट्स मोर और लेस इट्स अ जनरल थिंग। ये तो एक जो नीति शास्त्र में इस तरह का गुण सबको होना चाहिए। ये राजा और जो प्रशासन के लोग हैं उनका विशेष नहीं है, होना चाहिए सबका। लेकिन यहाँ दो चीज इसमें जो दो विशेष गुण जो दिया गया है कि धर्म का पालन करने वाला और शील का पालन करने वाला, ये जो बौद्ध धर्म और विचार और बौद्ध जो शील जो मोरल एंड एथिक्स जो इन्होंने इन दो ग्रंथों में विस्तृत रूप से जो दिया है, अगर उसका ठीक से सही रूप से पालन करने वाला व्यक्ति हो तब उसके द्वारा जो भी किया गया कार्य बिल्कुल शुद्ध संपन्न होना निश्चित है। इसलिए यहाँ पर भी मेन तो दिया है, इसमें शील का पालन करने वाला व्यक्ति होना चाहिए। सो दैट्स वन। और ग्रेटिट्यूड ये है, इसका मतलब ये है ये कृतज्ञवान होना। इसका अर्थ ये होगा शायद यहाँ जो समाज में जो अच्छे कार्य करने वाला है, अच्छे कार्य होना, उसका ही शुड बी उसका ऑनर होना चाहिए, और जो बुरे कार्य करने वाला है उसको दंडित होना चाहिए। इस तरह का जो अच्छे करने वाला और बुरे कार्य करने वाला का एक तरह से डिस्टिंक्शन हो करके अच्छे करने वाला को उसके योग्यता और उसके कार्य के अनुकूल उसको गिफ्ट दे, मतलब कि ग्रेटिट्यूड एक्सप्रेशन है। these are the qualifications or characteristics described for a minister who is responsible for giving good governance। ये नागार्जुन का कहना ये है। और एक यहाँ सेकंड है जनरल कैसे होना चाहिए। इधर मूल संस्कृत में दंड नायक अर्थ दिया है। ये दंड नायक अर्थ भी सेनापति के अर्थ में होता है, तो ये भी ठीक है। यहाँ भी ये है कि पहले तो जेनरस होना चाहिए। यहाँ इंग्लिश में जेनरस, लेकिन वहाँ संस्कृत मूल में आच्छुद्रन लिखा है। आच्छुद्रन का अर्थ होता है कि छोटे विचार का ना हो, उदार विचार वाला होना चाहिए, मतलब कि ब्रॉड माइंडेड इस तरह का व्यक्ति हो। फिर विदाउट अटैचमेंट, ये मतलब कि ये त्यागी होना चाहिए। संस्कृत मूल में त्यागेन लिखा है, तो इसका मतलब त्यागी, he should be ready to give up or sacrifice for the welfare of the people or for others, इस तरह का व्यक्ति। और ऑफ कोर्स ब्रेव तो वीर होना चाहिए, एफेक्शनेट सबके प्रति स्नेह और प्रेम रखने वाला। और ये who use the king's property well, ये भी अच्छा है। जो राज संपत्ति है उसका सही ढंग से उपयोग करने वाला। देन स्ट्रेट फॉरवर्ड, इसका अर्थ मूल संस्कृत में दृढ़ स्वभाव रखने वाले का अर्थ में है। And then is last में always attentive and practice the doctrine. ये भी इसका अर्थ ये कि सदा जागरूक रहने वाला इस तरह का। यहाँ संस्कृत में इसका एक ठीक है, ये इन गुणों से युक्त होना चाहिए। और देन अगेन हियर प्रैक्टिस डॉक्ट्रिन, धर्म का पालन करने वाला और धर्म का पालन करने वाला, ये सब। तो इन गुणों से युक्त राजा की जो जनरल है वो इस तरह से इन गुणों से युक्त होना चाहिए। और उसके बाद जो प्रशासन एडमिनिस्ट्रेटर है उसमें गुण में भी यही दिया है कि मैन ऑफ ओल्ड, वयोवृद्ध हो, ज्ञानवृद्ध हो, अनुभवी हो, और उसके साथ ऑफ रिलीजियस डिस्पोजिशन, ये तो इसका आगे गया, जो शील का पालन करने वाला हो और दोष रहित चरित्र हो, सक्षम आदमी हो, अपने कार्य को करने के लिए सक्षम आदमी हो, सक्षम हो। देन ये भी ठीक है कि who knows what to do, ठीक है, सही नीति को जानने वाला हो। एंड देन वेल रेड का अर्थ शायद मूल संस्कृत में शास्त्र को भी लिखा है, इसका अर्थ है शास्त्रों का ज्ञान रखने वाला, ये है। और उसके बाद जो अनभ्यास है वो सबके प्रति समान और भेदभाव ना रखने वाला का व्यक्ति। फिर उसके बाद फिर ये अफेक्शनेट, ठीक है, वो सबके प्रति स्नेह और प्रेम रखने वाला और अंडरस्टैंड गुड पॉलिसी, फिर जो नीति है उसको ठीक से जानने वाला, इस तरह का व्यक्ति होना चाहिए। अगर जो प्रशासन से संकल्प, जो प्रशासन से लगे हुए जो लोगों का अगर इन गुणों से युक्त हो, तब जो शासन है, you can give a good governance. So these are the some of the characteristic or qualities prescribed for giving for the person who are directly involved in the administration. तो इसमें इसका एक ये है कि अगर जो टॉप लेवल पर राजा से लेकर के जो मिनिस्टर तक के जो शासन के लोग, अगर वो लोग का चरित्र उनके चरित्र दोष से युक्त ना हो, तो उसका प्रभाव सीधा जनता पर भी पड़ता है। फिर जनता भी उसका अनुसरण करेगा, उसका अनुकूल कार्य होगा। इसलिए तो एक स्वच्छ और एक संपन्न समाज होना निश्चित है। तो ये उन्होंने कहा है। और इसके बाद इन्होंने ये भी कहा है कि एवरी मंथ यू शुड हियर फ्रॉम देम। ये भी अच्छा है, ये भी ठीक है, क्योंकि बहुत अच्छा है, क्योंकि अपने जो फ्रॉम देम का अर्थ जो मिनिस्टर और ये जो अपने लोग शासन से जो जुड़े हुए लोगों हैं, उनसे हर महीने का इनकम और एक्सपेंस का जो कितना आय हुआ है, कितना खर्च हुआ है, उसका हिसाब किताब लेना चाहिए। ले करके क्या करना चाहिए, अब ये है, वट एवर यू हैव ए इनकम, इनकम उसका खर्च कहाँ पर होगा, वेयर दे शुड बी सेंट एक्सपेंड। तो ये इन्होंने यहाँ कहा है कि इसको सेंड देम बी डन फॉर द सेंटर्स डॉक्ट्रिन। तो इन्होंने ये कहा है कि इनका खर्च मेनली इन्होंने एक नाम लिया है, सेंटर्स फॉर डॉक्ट्रिन के लिए खर्च करने के लिए कहा, और बाकी सब ऑन so forth, आदि आदि करके. So इनका main emphasis is on the centers of doctrine. इसका अर्थ धर्म स्थल है, धर्म स्थल. इसका मतलब कि जो धार्मिक स्थल है, इसमें जब when you say doctrines of centers of doctrine, it's not confined only to the Buddhist places and Buddhist monastery and Buddhist vihara. It includes all other religions, all religions. When it is और एक शब्द दूसरा आता है वहाँ abode of the three jewel. तो वहाँ Buddhist monastery और Buddhist vihara के लिए कहा जाता है. तो यहाँ खास करके जो समाज में जो धार्मिक स्थल है उनका विकास करना, उनको विस्तार करना, उसके लिए ये सतवाहन डायनेस्टी में नागार्जुन ने उनको राज को बहुत प्रेरित किया. He encouraged the king to build more religious centers, religious establishments throughout his kingdom, and this, I think, we can. The advice of the Nagarjuna was very much accepted by the king. This how we can know that whether this advice was adopted by the king or not is क्योंकि आजकल from the archaeological remainings in the Andhra, like Nagarjuna Kontra site and the Buddhist site in the Nagarjuna Kontra, and then Buddhist site and remainings in the Amaravati area. So all of these Buddhist centers were initially flourished during the time of Satvana period. So it clearly indicates that the advice of the king, advice of the Nagarjuna, was strictly followed, and it really involved the advice of the Nagarjuna have influenced the role of the Satvana kings. And so then another, and also there's one, he says, so long as the prisoners are not freed, they should be given made compatible with barber, bath and food. अगर इनका कहना ये है कि जो प्रिजनर लोग हैं, जो प्रिजनर अभी जेल से छूटे नहीं हो, उनको भी सारी सुविधा, बाबर से खाना पीना, दवाई से लेकर के बाल कटने वाले तक का सुविधा देना चाहिए. इसका मतलब अगर if the prisoners are given all the comfortable facilities from food, medicine, and even a barber, then it is surely the same sense of caring and the subject is there. तो सभी प्रजा को भी, सभी जनता को भी जो दैनिक आवश्यक है उसका equal distribution and equal देता होगा, ऐसा इससे संकेत मिलता है. And then also he says this is very this, क्योंकि जो those who are in the jail, they should be those who are involved in the wrongdoings. Of course, they should be punished, but they should be punished with the sense of, they should not be punished with the sense of hatred and desire for more wealth, but they should be treated, they should be punished with the wish to make them better. तो ये भी इस तरह का जो विचार इन्होंने रखा है. अब यहाँ इन्होंने कहा है, यहाँ कहा है कि क्रिएट सेंटर ऑफ डॉक्ट्रिन. ये क्रिएट सेंटर ऑफ डॉक्ट्रिन मतलब कि धार्मिक स्थल का निर्माण होना चाहिए, मतलब कि इस all religion, it includes religion and abode of the three jivas. अब ये बौद्ध मंदिर और बौद्ध विहार आदि के लिए ये शब्द उपयोग किया है। तो इसको जैसा उन्होंने कहा है, राजा को नागार्जुन ने ऐसा करने के लिए जो उपदेश और जो सलाह दिया गया था, उसका ठीक से शायद सतवाहन राजा ने उसको सलाह मान करके इतना जो धार्मिक स्थल और इन सब का विकास किया और बुद्धिस्ट फिलोसफी एंड जो बुद्धिस्ट प्रैक्टिस का विस्तृत रूप से उन्होंने प्रचार किया है। अब एट द सेम टाइम, अब इसके समकक्ष में, सो एट द सेम टाइम the Kushan, no, the Satavahana dynasty is in the south, in the Andhra side, and at the same time in the north, the Kushan, almost in the contemporary period, the Kushan dynasty, the king of Kanishka of Kushan dynasty was in the northern India, stretching from Central Asia up to the Mathura. So there also one Buddhist monk, Maitreya Chitra, he wrote a letter to Kanishka, and also here also the monk gives certain suggestions with regards to the good governance. And so this clearly indicates that the Buddhist monks and the rule of Kanishka and Satavahan kings, they were very much influenced by the Buddhist ethical and moral principles and Buddhist ideas. So इन्होंने भी यहाँ ये लिखा है कि kings and ministers with compassion should execute the royal political duties with the action free from delusions. इन्होंने सीधा यही कहा है कि जो भी राजकार्य है, जो इवन किंग, चाहे किंग और मिनिस्टर, ये सब जितना भी राजकार्य है, उसको जो ये द्वेष, राग, मोह आदि जो क्लेश है, इनसे विमुक्त हो करके इस कार्य को करना चाहिए. इनका उपदेश ये है, means you have to perform your duty with the sense of the ethical and moral obligation. So anything, any action, if it is executed with the sense of good moral idea, of course, then the results will be, of course, good. And उन्होंने दूसरा ये कहा कि if you are influenced by the dishonest and deceitful thought, all your actions will be regulated by discord and thought. ये इन्होंने भी यही बिल्कुल यहाँ भी कहा है कि अगर आपने बेईमानी और मिथ्या विचार से प्रभावित हो करके अगर आप कुछ भी कार्य करते हैं, वो कार्य बेईमान होगा, धोखाधड़ी होगा, मतलब कि वो अच्छे नहीं होगा. जब आप इन क्लेशों से, मोह, राग, इन विचारों से युक्त होकर के कार्य करेगा, तब आपके जो निचले लोग, जो पीपल है, पीपल विल फॉलो यू, ये है ना, व्हाट यू डू, जो आप करेगा वो जनता भी वही फॉलो करेगा. इसलिए द पीपल एंड दैट विल लीड टू द डिक्लाइन ऑफ द, तब ये पॉपुलेशन का और सरकार का, राज का पतन होने का, हनन होने का कारण ये है. वेरी, I think these are very thoughtful advice, which is strictly based on morality and moral and ethical values. और उसके बाद ये भी कह रहा है कि like the father cares his like the father care his son, you take care of your subject with love. Like a son take care of your father, your subject will be delighted. ये भी है कि अपने प्रजा को जैसे पिता अपने पुत्र को स्नेह और प्रेम के साथ उसका पालन करते हैं, उसी तरह अगर आपको भी अपने जनता को अपने पुत्र की तरह उसका देखभाल करना चाहिए. It's telling the what should be the relation between the ruler and the ruled subject. तो इसका व्यवहार एक पिता पुत्र के संबंध होना चाहिए. अगर इस तरह का संबंध अगर व्यवहारिक जीवन में है तब तो अच्छा शासन और सुशासन होना तो स्वाभाविक है. I think these are very good ethical advice, and which was, I think, very much strictly adopted and by these kings, and they were very successful in giving a good governance. Then ये कह रहा है कि from the behavior of earlier kings, ये भी बड़ा अच्छा सुझाव दे रहा है यहाँ. From the behavior of earlier kings, do those that are good, those that are not worthy, condemn and eliminate. जो परंपरा और ये और इसके नीचे है, earlier rules of the laws and that are faulty and even they exist from the ancient time, eliminate. ये भी ये बिल्कुल ये दे रहा है ना, ये कि जो परंपरा और जो नियम कानून चाहे पूर्व राजाओं से जो चले आ रहा हो या जो नियम और कानून और जो व्यवस्था पहले से जो चले आ रहा जो है, अगर उसमें जो दोषी है, उपयोगी नहीं है, उनको छोड़ करके नया कानून और नया व्यवस्था का गठन करना चाहिए. He says eliminate them and formulate a new rule of Kanishka in the name. वो कनिष्क के नाम, कनिष्क राज के राजा के नाम पर नया रूल का गठन होना चाहिए. इस तरह का जो सलाह और जो एडवाइस जो दे रहा है, I think they are really very much influenced. These advice very much influence these powerful kings, and so these kings have adopted these principles and Buddhist practices, and they have been able to rule and give a good governance on the basis of the Buddhist principles, and especially the Buddhist moral and ethical values. So these are the things really I wanted to share. And so because if the leaders or the top individual responsible for the maintenance or governor of the state themselves engage in all kind of philanthropies का मतलब कि जो अच्छे कार्य जो अच्छे कार्यों के लिए अगर ये लोग जो अच्छे कार्यों में संकल्प है तो provides no rational basis for the ruthless greed and selfish characteristics of the individual. And then these guidelines specify the principle of tolerance and justice and generosity as the essential element of the social Buddhist order, inspired by the moral junctions that king must put the collective interest. King must put the collective interest or the communal benefit and interest ahead of himself. That is, first, put the people first. Ab ye sab, I think, because from the Buddhist perspective, particularly the human society is based on a self and others relation, and social harmony and anarchy result from the extreme self-centric behavior. So ये especially in Buddhism, particularly in Mahayana Buddhism, this is very much key, how to reduce the self-centric behavior of an individual, because this is the root of all anarchy or all problem in the society. So इसके लिए विस्तृत रूप से बौद्ध दर्शन में उसका कैसे करना चाहिए दिया गया है. तो इसको I think now we have that there's not much time, so I think we should better to sum up. Now, finally, just I will conclude it. इसमें जो in this talk, the two things I really wanted to share is, or the conclusion is that the democratic principle and values considered to be the European Enlightenment, such as the equality and tolerance of dissidents and freedom, justice, were remarkably harmonized with the ancient Indian thought, particularly with the Buddhism. ये जो equal, the social equality, the tolerance in society, freedom in the society. So these are not merely a European Enlightenment, but these values were already there in the ancient Indian thought, particularly in Buddhism, since from the early 6th century BC, even much before that. So that is one thing I want to emphasize. Another thing is there's a substantial ground for locating the democratic idea of political principles and practice in India predate atheism. I think the idea of democratic principle and values could be predating the Athenian democracy in Europe. So that's another point I want to emphasize. And then finally, the multi-tiered social structure consisting of nation, state, and community and family, individuals play the most crucial role as they form the basic unit ground of the society. The comprehensive political thoughts or systems with the rules of law, terms of the national consciences are there in a modern society for delivering good governance and maintain a peaceful and social coexistence. It is evident that the successful implementation of these comprehensive laws and rules depends on the attitudes and behaviors of the individuals involved in the implementing of the law. So this is another point what I really wanted to emphasize, and even the Buddhist literature emphasize this point कि क्योंकि जो नियम कानून और पॉलिटिकल थ्योरीज जितने भी अच्छे हो, लेकिन उसको लागू करने के लिए उसका लागू करना किस पर निर्भर है. ये जो मिशनरीज है, जो एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव पर्सन्स, उनके चरित्र और उनके व्यवहार पर निर्भर है. So here, on the other hand, I would say that above all, good governance with harmonious and peaceful social can be delivered without having comprehensive and political thought with 1,000 pages of rules and regulations. if the attitude and behavior of the individuals involved in the administrative machineries of the government or state are good in the sense as prescribed in the ancient Indian literature. So that's so. With these words, I conclude my talk. So I thanks for bearing my terrible talks. So anyhow, this is what I really wanted to share. Oh, thank you for listening to me. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you very much. I'll request you to kindly stop presenting so that we can proceed. I'd like to say something before I invite the students' questions. When I called you for the first time and I requested you to deliver a lecture, and I told you one thing also that, sir, I'm looking forward to learn from you. That day you told me that I'll be disappointed. You have nothing to teach me, but sir, I must say, and it's actually I'm speaking because I have learned so much. I must say, I have learned so much because you have referred to the original text, those letters which are not, not available to us. So very original sources, quoting from those original sources, and you built up this lecture so beautifully, I must say, from beginning, basic foundations of Buddhism, Buddhist worldview, that in general, how Buddhists look at the question of politics and state, and then directly coming to statecraft. And I must say, my student, that you are very fortunate to have sir with us. This was actually our original lecture, and at least I learned a lot. And I must say, it's the concept that how the concept of Chakravartin Samrat, there is one notion of political Chakravartin Samrat, and Buddhism presents a moral Chakravartin Samrat concept. And yes, it was not only a lecture. It was not only a lecture on statecraft. I must say it was a lecture on politics and ethics, and what is the Buddhist perspective of politics and ethics. And therefore, I find this lecture highly valued and highly relevant in the present time when we all are actually, you see, we are seeing how the quality of politics is declining.
Yes,
and here comes the role of the Buddhist principle that the relation between the Vyasti and Samasti. If you will not work on the ground of Vyasti, you cannot improve Samasti. And this relation is beautifully discussed by you, sir. I am very, very, very thankful to you. Actually, I am very thankful to you. And now, some of the questions which students have asked, and if with your permission, sir, I'd like to present it before you.
Yes.
One question is by Nancy Chopra. And she is asking that as we have read that Buddhist principle determine a person's ability by his qualities and karma and not his birth, then why does Nagarjuna in his Ratnamala gives good lineage as an important quality for major player of administration? Sir, would you like to respond to that?
Yes, you are right. I know that there will be a question with regard to this point but here actually we have to understand that the Buddhism originated in India, in an Indian social context. So the everything, because I think there are two ways to look at these questions. One, let's say, why good lineage? Kyun good lineage? I think to be practically to have born in a good family or in a good environment. If you compare two childs, if you compare two child born at the same period of time, born in the same locality, but born in a different family background. One born in a good family in the sense that where economically or culturally you are born in a family where you have a good environment of learning the things, knowing the things, and then you have all the facilities or the mechanism to know the things. But at the same time, on the other hand, a child born in another family with this simple family without without all this good environment. So naturally तो फर्क तो पड़ेगा ना अब इन दोनों में से जो लड़के अच्छे परिवार में अच्छे संपन्न परिवार में जो पैदा हुआ है उनको बचपन से without doing much of without putting much of his own energy, he learns more thing about the society. He learns more about the things. So he has more. He's more experience because he see more things, and he know more things because he has access to all this the environment. Whereas the inner child, because of his being born in a simple family, he is deprived of many qualities. So एक तो ये कारण हुआ, इसलिए जो लड़के और जो फैमिली जो संपन्न परिवार में जो पैदा हुआ है उनको naturally he is familiar with more person with more knowledge. इसलिए ये भी एक अंतर पड़ता है एक सामाजिक में. In reality life we have to see in the reality, है ना. Theoretically हाँ ये तो ठीक है, लेकिन in other words why? Because Buddhism was, as I said, it was originated in Indian society before the Buddhism, before Shakyamuni was born. The Indian society was there. So there was a social disparity, there was a social caste system, and all this social what you say, social evils were there. So when I think this is normally in Buddhism, people say, oh, Buddhism is very anti, feminist, because they say that because Buddha did not accept the nun for the first time. He said, okay, not necessary, just let's see later time. तो बाद में उनको भिक्षु बनाने का अनुमति दिया, लेकिन सर्वप्रथम नहीं दिया गया. तो लोग कहते हैं, oh, the Buddhism is also very discriminating. The gender discrimination is there even in the Buddhism. मेरे समाज में, I think that it is not only the gender discrimination because the Buddha, because Buddha was even living in Indian society. In that social background, in that society, it is not easy or not comfortable to accept ladies भिक्षु बनाना इतना, क्योंकि लोग स्वीकार करेगा ये इतना आसान से, accept that people will not accept it very easily. So he did very slowly because taking into consideration the social environment. यहाँ भी यह शायद यही है, श्रेष्ठ कुल से इसलिए संपन्न कहा गया है कि जो संपन्न परिवार से संबंध रखते हैं उनको के लिए ज्ञान प्राप्त करने के लिए, अनुभवी होने के लिए, हर चीज के लिए उनको सुविधा है. उनको he is accessible and familiar with these qualities, and therefore in comparison these two child, अगर इन दोनों में से अगर आपको एक को लेना है तब तो naturally you will be the person who is born in a family, he will be given the priority. This is because of the social experience. Yeah, I think that's the reason. It's not I don't think it is a kind of a discrimination based I think it's not a kind of a discrimination. It is the social actual fact.
Thank you, sir. Now, one more question is there. She is asking a question which generally is asked only also on Gandhi. And she is asking that Buddhist approach to statecraft is mainly based on soft diplomacy. To what extent it is effective to solve the problems of the contemporary international disputes, of which is the contemporary nuclear world. So she is asking about the contemporary relevance of these principles.
It's a good question. The Buddhist, characteristics described for the statecraft. If you ask a question whether these are relevant today or not, it is relevant. लेकिन ये अमल पर whether it is practical or not, the answer is I'm sorry, it's not practical, because आजकल practical में ये संभव इसलिए नहीं है कि आजकल I think you hear everywhere in India and all over the world there is the education system में परिवर्तन होना चाहिए, नैतिकता का हनन हो रहा है, पतन हो रहा है, इस तरह का तो चर्चा तो हर जगह हो रहा है ना कि there is a downfall of moral and ethical values. इसका मतलब ये हुआ ना, डाउन हो रहा के मतलब पहले earlier the situation, the moral and ethical value was much better than what is now. ये हुआ ना, ये तो सफेद हुआ ना. तो जब individual का from each individual, the moral and ethical values of each individual was better at the time of those king, then all these principles can be applied for good governance. But आजकल तो moral value और ये जो नैतिकता तो अब तो केवल शब्द मात्र और जब केवल कहने मात्र तक सीमित हो गया ना, तो I think these will not be helpful. The final answer is these are not going to be helpful in solving the contemporary conflicts. And अब ये किसका गलती है? Is it the fault of the qualities or not? It's the fault of we individuals. इसलिए I don't think it is all these moral values and principles is not going to be helpful in solving the current political problems, because आज तक तो बस I think we are living in a very different world. So I think I'm a little bit ये जवाब.
Thank you, sir. So now we have reached to the end, and I have no words to thank you, sir. I mean, for sharing your knowledge, for giving us a perspective, and in fact, for giving us so many research questions with which a student of political science may proceed. So for sparing your valuable time, your knowledge, I thank you, sir, on the behalf of the Department of Political Science and on my personal behalf. And I'm very hopeful that in future also we'll get the opportunity to have you with us and to have a more discussion, some more interaction. So I'm thankful to you.
Yeah.
I'm also thankful to all my students. I must thank you all, because it is you, when you come to the lecture, when you pose your question, when you raise your doubt, that makes lecture very interactive. And so I thank all my students for their active participation, for being with us. And I am also thankful to all my colleagues who are with us in this lecture, Dr. Punita Pathak, Dr. Jitendra Lalwani, Dr. Sneha Patel, and we hope we'll get more and more opportunity to have this kind of discussion and this kind of interaction, because this is the way of learning. And once again, sir, I thank you very, very much on the behalf of the Department of Political Science, and I hope we'll get you,
thank you.
Able to be with you, interact with you. And I also have a request, sir, if possible. if it is possible, sir, and if the English version is available of this Rajavrittopadesh, this chapter,
Yes,
if
yes,
you can,
yes, yes. Yeah, there's.
because
I think there's at least 2 or 3 different translations of this text,
okay,
Ratnamala, and the original Sanskrit is incomplete. Is I think they are the out of the 5 chapters. I think there are 3 chapters, but this chapter, the 4th chapter, is almost complete. So that may be more useful for you. I think. Yeah, of course, I can share it with you,
that would be
and
wonderful, sir. That
then
would be great helpful.
yes, yeah, yes, because
Oh,
this text in many of the books in books and articles on the Buddhist political thoughts. So most of the writers have used have been giving a reference from referring these books, and so
okay,
anyhow, this is I think one at least one chapter of a book which really tries to concentrate on political issues, on matters relating to giving a good governance. So written by a great scholar in Nagarjuna in the 3rd century. And I think because these letters, and particularly that the small letter written by a Buddhist monk to the Kanishka, written in the early 3rd centuries, and since then this letter was preserved in Kashmir, I think in India, and in 8th century it was translated into Tibetans. These letters, and especially these 2 texts of Nagarjuna, they have a great influence on the Tibetan Buddhism, and in the Tibetan, uh, I think Tibetan way of life and the Tibetan way of life, even uh, Tibetan uh, government system, because these were translated into Tibetan in the 8th century, and the kings, Tibetan kings of that period, they have adopted the Buddhism, and they have ruled the country on the basis of the Buddhist principles and ideas. So I think these texts are very influential, and particularly that chapter. I think
yes,
a great scholar of 3rd century saying about the कैसे शासन कैसे चलाना चाहिए. देखिए एक सिंपल भिक्षु होते हुए भी अपने उस राज के राजा को सलाह दे रहा है कि आप ऐसा करना चाहिए, ऐसा करना चाहिए, ऐसा करना चाहिए. इस तरह का व्यक्ति, इस इन गुणों से युक्त व्यक्ति को आप इन पदों पर नियुक्त करना चाहिए. इस तरह का, I think that's really influenced the Satvana dynasty. I think so, because what we see in the archaeological remainings in the Andhra area, whether it is the Nagarjuna Konda area, whether it is the Amaravati area, most of the earliest Buddhist remainings and Buddhist monastic remaining, Buddhist artistic remaining, they are from the time of Satvana, almost from the period of Nagarjuna. So that means whatever the Nagarjuna had said to the king had really influenced the king, and king had really put it in practice, and it really. So I think thank you. Anyhow, thank you for all of you putting all your 1 or more than 1 hour time. I think it's a waste of time. I think.
no, sir. It was a great learning. It was a great learning, and we are looking forward to
Anyhow,
this kind of. Thank you, sir, very
thank
much,
you.
sir.
Yeah. So this I will send you a copy of
Yes, sir.
this text.
That would
And,
be of great help,
yes.
sir.
Okay. English
So thank.
translation as well as
Yes.
the original Sanskrit, and
Okay.
and
Okay.
the
That would be good.
letter to Kanishka is in Tibetan, and I think there's no English translation so far. It's a
Okay.
small letter, but still, I'm sure this letter might have has a great influence on the most powerful king, Kanishka, because Kanishka and Ashoka, these are the 2 kings who have brought the Buddhist ideas and Buddhism out of India and up to the Central Asia and so. And these powerful kingdoms, I think you can say a Buddhist empire must have been influenced by the Buddhist thoughts. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
For hearing my terrible lecture. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much, sir. So I'm closing it now. Pranam.
Okay. Pranam, namaskar.